just because you have a hush of a clientele parents means that every single kid is a mitzvah and is academically. So how do you do that?
In our day and age, where every single person has a platform to give their opinion on everything and anything, it's actually super important to have grounded knowledge of what is Torah's MS and what's just the opinion of the latest Insta celebrity.
To be able to spit back information, my chavrusi used to call me a Chinese tape recorder. Like, I could say it back. I have no clue what I'm saying, but I could say it back. Is not really education.
Welcome to the Learning Curve podcast, brought to you by Mishpacha magazine.
We're raising children in a changing and challenging world.
So let's tackle the important issues facing families today.
I'm Rabbi Garfield, Menal of Yeshiva Torah's Emes in Houston, and I love talking about chinuch.
I'm Rabbi Ari Schonfeld, Menal of Yeshiva Katana Manhattan, Rosh Meister of Beis Sipra Manhattan, Director of Camp Aish. I also love talking chinuch, and of course, a little bit of fishing.
Join us as we answer your questions and discuss the topics that matter to parents the most.
Season 3 is upon us. Bruchim Habayim, welcome back to everybody. And Rabbi Garfield, we had a little bit of a taste of a back-to-school session, but it's for real. And maybe you want to tell the listeners what's new and unique about this season of the Learning Curve.
Well, if they're watching us, they figured it out that we are joining the rest of the world who have production with video. So we're trying this out. It's new and exciting.
We have to now behave. We can't make faces to each other, at each other. But really, this is something that we've grown to really enjoy doing together. Baruch Hashem, the feedback has been beautiful and mostly positive, but still sounds like we've engaged our listeners and our parents and some bakrim to really care about Inyane Chinuch. We try to stay in our lane and offer our opinions, our opinionated opinions. We love what we do, and we try to share with our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't realize I was in the Northeast over the summer, visiting important camps and just visiting yeshiva and other things like that, family. And the amount of people who had either recognized me or had comments, I didn't realize, how many people are listening and how involved it is. And it was really great. And it was very positive. Of course, people always would say, I love the way you said this to Rabbi Schonfeld, or I love the way he said that, and a little hock. But that was great. That's all part of the fun.
Someone asked me, who's your target audience? You could have a different audience. I think there's mainly 3 segments from society. It's mothers who listen to many podcasts to try to help their children, boys and girls. It's yeshiva bachrim who use their MP players to get in on the hock. And it's couples who are going to weddings in Lakewood. It's the third group. I can't tell you how many people tell me, I was driving to Lakewood with my wife, and we're like, let's put on Learning Curve.
It's a great opportunity, because then they could argue about the issues and pontificate and go on rants.
No, and it's perfect, because if you're coming from New York to Lakewood is an hour and 10, so you wait to get on the highway. It literally, I think we've hit the sweet spot.
Well, we always say the number at the end, but just in case you're that guy, you guys could call us and leave a message from the car at 443-686-9339. That would be awesome. Bring us right in.
Bring us into the car. So let's explain for our new listeners of how we like to work our podcast so we can get right to it. Enough of the chit-chat. We try to deal with a couple of small topics a week, and then a spotlight question. This week, our spotlight question is exciting. We have 2 guests coming up, which we'll discuss. And we deal with some small issues and larger issues. They're all very important issues. So, Rabbi Garfield, I think question 1, you're going to ask me, and then I ask you 2. Hopefully, we'll see how many questions we get to. You'll ask me question 3. We'll take it from there.
Right.
Go.
Well,
Here we go.
All right, here's the first question for season 3 on the Learning Curve. What do I do for my son who loves camp? Oh, please, enough with the camp. Everyone is saying that. Okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
Adanu, we know. Okay, what do I do for my son who loves camp and learning groups, but has a hard time getting to school during the week and refusing to go on Sunday?
Okay, so there's a lot of assumptions in that email from a parent that I, as a camp director, will definitely not try and refute. And that is the assumption that her son, whoever this mother is, was on time to Shrakos learning groups in camp, right? I don't know why she's assuming that. I see it's in parentheses. And I think he was on time to Shrakos and learning groups. I don't know why she assumes that, but okay. So obviously, a challenge of getting up in the morning in camp and then not wanting to go to school. I remember in Shara Torah, one Elsman, right, at the beginning of this man, my Mashgiach, Rabbi Moshe Roberts, he gave a shmooze about not needing a lot of sleep. And like, kids complaining, I'm tired, I miss Shabbos because I was tired, or I can learn because I was tired, and I need more sleep, Rebbe. And he says, last week, during Color War, you didn't sleep for 3 days. In the last 4 weeks in camp, you slept 5 hours a night, 4 hours a night. And he was like, camp is a tviyah. I know they're going to be teveya you. You see, you could do it without sleep. But there's an excitement and an adrenaline rush in camp that doesn't happen in yeshiva.
Also, chakras is probably later, easier to get to. But anyway, we'll leave it.
There's two very, I think, distinct questions here.
What time is chakras in camp? Before to jump in at your camp.
So my camp chakras is 8:40. It really depends. Most camp chakras is around 8:30, unless you're on camp time. Then it's 7:30.
What about school?
Yeah, it's an hour earlier, right? 7:40, 7:45. But
if you have to be in your school at 7:30, you have to be up at.
You got to wake up early. The other part of this question, which is Sunday, we dealt with this, I believe, in an article in TLC Talks in the magazine. Sunday is a different schmooze because Sunday half your kids are home, right? The girls are off on Sundays. It's a little bit of a different conversation. By and large, the kid that's struggling to get up, there's just, this causation and correlation. You're assuming that there's a correlation between yeshiva and camp. Children generally want to go to school because everyone goes to school, and you don't want to feel left out because that's what people are doing. If your child doesn't want to go to school, that means your child is unhappy in school. It's not because your child is tired. And it's also not because camp was so amazing and yeshiva isn't as exciting as camp is. Of course, that's true. But the typical kids, no one likes school. Everyone can't wait for the snow days. But kids go to school because all their friends go, and it's the normal, accepted thing to do. If your kid is not getting up on time in the morning, then there's a reason for that. Maybe he's up later at night that he can handle. Maybe he's not happy with there's a social challenge in school. It's such an easy pinata to just go ahead and say, oh, camp is fun. If yeshivas would have more fun, the kid would go to school in the morning. It's just not true. You have to figure it out. Don't just say it's yeshiva just because they're not fun. There's a reason for it, and it's your Christ to find that out.
I hear you. Yeah, I mean, I think some kids just have a hard time getting up. It's a challenge. I don't really have an easy answer for it.
And by the way, Mommy, the kid that had a hard time getting up during the year has a hard time getting up in camp, right? Right. We don't call the parents when the kids, but right, but the kids, there's a reason why we have incentive programs in camps and counselors are pulling covers off, right? Kids have a hard time getting up. Do not in camp pop up every day and get up for Shabbos. It's just not true. It's a struggle for them as well.
We had an interesting discussion in Houston about Sunday. So Sunday here used to be, we've been slowly making it more substantial and more serious. And the last step before this year was there's still no uniform requirement. And it was, the Rebbeim came and said basically the consensus of all the people involved was that it makes, even though it's nice for the kids to be able to be more chilled, I guess, but it creates this vibe that's very hard to make a substantial day. So, even though we were trying to be nice by being more relaxed, sometimes that could backfire in a certain way.
Yep.
So this year it's like totally regular, regular dress code, like regular expectations.
What is your dress code? Are you allowed to wear colorful sneakers?
We don't have a sneakers. Sneakers are not part of the dress.
That makes two of us. So the kids wear the non-matching sneakers? They wear those?
You mean like one's blue and one's yellow or something?
Yes.
Honestly, I haven't noticed that, but I guess that would not be a violation of our.
Yeah. We don't have a rule. We let the kids wear, I guess, what they want.
Is that a thing? You buy them like that, or you have to buy 2 sets and then?
No, that's my big joke. Is, oh my gosh, you got gypped off by the store. No, it's very fancy, very chashuv. I don't know who, probably some NBA player. That one's green and yellow, and one is red and orange, and very geschmack.
Wow. So do you allow that, or do you have a rule against that?
Yes, I do. I kibitz it. A parent asks me. I said prefer you not to, but I don't stop it.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a certain yeshiva, don't want to mention his name, but I'm sure this is common, where they rule about socks because the kids are wearing colorful socks. And sometimes it gets a little out of control. So just let the kids wear them and we'll all be okay. Well, to each his own.
All right. So that was I feel that question was like a little bit of like a spring training question.
Yeah, warm us up.
The Sunday and in camp and yeshiva. So now you ready for a heavy hitter?
Yeah.
You go from spring training to playoffs. Go.
I'm ready.
This is a very sensitive question. It's why I decided I want you to have this and not me. So here we go. Dear Learning Curve, we had a very hard year financially and ended the last school year with a lot of tuition unpaid. My husband is still searching for a job, and my salary is not covering our basic bills, mortgage, food, car, utilities. Our children's school did not allow them in until tuition was caught up, but we've already maxed out credit cards, favors, and loans. How is this fair to my child?
Wow. I guess this was written before the school year started. We're now recording this, well into the school year, and I hope that something was worked out. It would be horrible
Right.
if the children are home at this point. The answer is it's not fair. It's not fair. I don't know. Life, it's hard.
Wait, 1 second. She wasn't asking whether it's fair or not. She was asking, I think, is this acceptable practice of a school to hold the kid out because the parents can't afford to pay tuition or can't pay tuition?
Listen, it's impossible for me to judge another school and the situation but I would say, generally speaking, if it's true that the family really is doing their best and they haven't been derelict and they haven't lied and they haven't played games and they're pushing, struggling, my understanding of Das Torah in this, in the situations that I've had conversations about, is that you need to work with the family and you do not kick the kid out. However, often there is more complexity to it. And I remember one conversation we had with Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky, should be well, and I believe this was even said publicly at a Torah Masora convention, that if the parents aren't being menschlich, like if they're lying or they're playing games, then you do not have to necessarily go down that rabbit hole because it puts the school in an impossible situation. But assuming that's not the case, then my understanding is that the school should make it work. Now, the school has a right to say to the community and organization or to ask the parents to help raise money, or, it's not just like dump on the school, but certainly the school, I would think, really should lead the way to make it work. We have an achrayus to these kids. If they're not in your school yet, that's a different story, right? But these are children that you took achrayus for, and they've been with you for years, and you're invested in their chinuch, and you care about them as human beings. You can't just say, I'm sorry you lost your job, or, it's just not how it works.
Yeah, so I'm uncomfortable even discussing this topic because I like to stay in my lane of where I feel it's a little bit my achrayus and decision making. I don't think this is a menahel's decision. This is not a chinuch shaila. This is, as you said, a das Torah shaila, maybe for the varachinuch of the yeshiva, for the paisik of the yeshiva. This is not a shaila. This really isn't a question that a menahel should have to deal with. A monetary fight, for lack of a better word, between the yeshiva and the parents. So I'm uncomfortable having this conversation because I really don't like to enter into arenas where it's muddy and it's a little dirty, and it does ruin the purity of what we're attempting to do as those involved in chinuch. It's, every yeshiva has had stories like these type of delicate, horrible, painful situations. The challenge always is usually when a parent agrees to pay a certain amount, right, to a contract that they sign in March, and then the parent comes and says, I can't pay it. If the schools had no recourse, and if yeshivas just said, okay, then the yeshivas will not be able to function, right? Tuitions are painful. Tuitions are expensive, very. And yeshivas have to be able to apply pressure because there's always a hierarchy for parents, right? This mother says, we've already maxed out credit cards, favors, loans, and we have bills, mortgages. This is always, again, this is not a question for me as a manal of what comes first. Is the yeshiva's tuition first, or maybe you shouldn't have 2 cars, you should have 1 car? These are totally unfair conversations. My point is that if yeshiva doesn't have the ability to apply pressure to a parent and to quote unquote threaten, then the yeshiva will be sometimes just put last on the list. And then, I don't have to pay yeshiva, so I'm going to pay everything else and everyone else back. And then the yeshivas can't function. So a lot of times this quote unquote threat, we won't let your son into yeshiva, your daughter into yeshiva until you pay, is a way of just putting the tuition higher up on the totem pole, and the parents pay and the kid gets in. You tell me, I don't know of scenarios where parents really couldn't pay and the yeshiva believed them and the yeshiva didn't take the child. But there is that uncomfortable timeline of, we can't pay tuition. Well, then I'm sorry, your son can come to yeshiva, right? And that opening conversation is really negotiations. It's what it is, right?
Right.
And as painful as it is, yeshivas need to have some sort of leverage or just whatever threat. These are horrible words, but yeshivas have to be able to pay the bills also.
Okay, few comments. One is, in my role, I understand like there are some schools where the manal is like chinuch only. Like in my personal position as a manal, I've head of school, I'm more like a CEO of the whole operation. So like ultimately,
You get involved in finances. You discuss with parents contracts and tuitions.
no, but I oversee it. So if there's a problem, I don't get involved. I don't know what people pay. But if there's dysfunction, if people feel mistreated, if there's a shaila, if there's issues that need to go up, it comes up to me before it'll go.
So Baruch
Yeah.
Hashem, I
And
don't,
different
and
schools
I
are
stay
different.
out of that.
I go over the budget. I'm responsible for the budget, meaning for making sure I'm
Right.
within the budget and all that stuff. I
Right,
can't
but I'm
report.
Baruch Hashem, I don't deal with tuitions.
Right. So I
It
think I'm
allows
coming
me to.
up from a
Right.
different
So we're a little
role.
different.
Yeah. But that said, I want to share with you an insight. And like, we have to be careful. Everyone, we're not trying to beat up on anyone. We're all in it together. We're trying our best. But I just want to say that there's a philosophy with regard to tuition collection that you should treat your parents who pay tuition like donors, that they're really giving the Mesiras Nefesh. And we have to have a certain attitude of appreciation where you cultivate that relationship, and then it pays off. And so I wonder if in the big picture, over 5 years or 10 years, if you assume the best of everyone and treat them well, and they go up, they go down, they come, they give you. We've had parents who sent us a check for a few $1,000s because they did better than they anticipated financially, which is rare. So I just wonder if our attitude would shift a little from talking about leverage and threats. You're right, in that particular transaction, you might not do well, but like ultimately, is it not worth it to just have shalom and not, like, how much money is really going to be lost?
You're giving business advice that you should know it's better for the school long term to collect money. That okay? Because then you can have someone else give a different business advice. The question is it appropriate for yeshiva to say to a parent who says, "I know I told you I'll pay you $3,000, I just can't." Does yeshiva have a right to tell the parents, "Really, you can't"? Show me. Is that
Right.
is
So I
that
guess
horrible?
what I'm saying is, even if they have the right, it might not be smart. That's what I'm saying. As someone who's done this and lives this, and then the big picture, if you don't get focused on this one power struggle, but you say big picture, the school's going to be around for a long time. These relationships, the kids could be in your school for 15 years. They go up, they go down. We have found that ultimately cultivating those relationships ends up in the big scheme. And there are some people who take advantage. It's true.
Right, but you don't feel but you don't think there are, I won't talk to you specifically, that there are Rosh Meisters that feel like, here, there's parents begging me for a break and they can't. And then for Hanukkah, they go to Orlando and it turns out that their grandparent paid for the tickets. So why can't they collect their grandparents' tuition? Right? There's no easy answer to this.
All the time. But, okay, so then what? So you're going to take them to small claims court. There's a limit to what you could do. The best, you're going to get the best out of it by cultivating a positive relationship. I do have one more thing to say. I think we do, as school leaders, have to understand that, like, you have to know what you're dealing with. You have to know your own emotionality. You have to know the school has to know who they're talking to. But the amount of pain that we're causing could be significant, and I just have to be cautious about it.
Just to end this story, I don't know of any stories like this, right? And I don't know if you do, of a story of a kid today who wanted to go to a yeshiva, and the parents came and said, "We Pashut can't pay. We just lost my job," or and the yeshiva said no.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know that. All right, it's great to bring on a very special guest, a dear friend of mine, Rabbi Aryeh Smith, who's the Manal at Torah Zev, the Manal of the middle school. Rabbi Smith, how many Talmidim are there in the middle school?
275.
Wow, and you're the only Manal, or do you have an assistant?
So I am a full-time assistant, Rabbi Mordechai Wenger,
Very nice.
and assists us in all areas.
How long have you been there for?
I just finished my 10th year. I was already there for 3 years. I just finished my 7th year. But no.
Beautiful.
Rabbi Smith is we're not going to say over the story, but is the Bala Maisa of one of the most chashuv stories. It may have been said in this podcast, but I think I changed a lot of the details, so I'm not going to out anybody. But a very chashuv story that happened the last couple of years. That's how I got to know him, I think, through email, and then we met at Torah convention. But happy to have you aboard.
Okay,
Dean.
welcome, Rabbi Smith. Rabbi Schonfeld, ask the question. Please.
So this is our spotlight question, which we like to spend some time on. So Rabbi Smith will deal with this from a middle school perspective, and then we'll have Mrs. Aliza Feder join us afterwards, maybe from a high school girl's perspective. But here's the question. I think it's a question that anyone that has, kids, maybe at any age, but over the age of 10 can relate to. The school year just started, and my kids are already stressed. My 6th grade son is now in middle school. More teachers, more work, and a wonderful Rebbe who says that Gemara Chazara always come first and is a must every night. My 10th grade daughter has nothing but memorizing Jewish history, memorizing psukim, memorizing timelines. Why are we putting so much pressure on these kids? Real life will come either way. Why can't they just enjoy the last few years of being a child, even while in school? There has to be another way. And then in brackets, I dare you to find one mother who thinks differently. Rabbi Garfield likes a dare, so that's good.
Yes.
So, Rabbi Smith, the question of, maybe it's an age-old question, pressure in yeshivas, good thing, bad thing, finding balance.
So, Rabbi Garfield, you didn't introduce me enough, but you have to introduce me. I'm coming from Lakewood. And in Lakewood, this is definitely a very strong topic.
Topic that's discussed? That's what you mean? Like a big tumult?
No, very strong, I guess, not topic, a very strong part of our culture. So it goes like this. What we all want to get to is we want our kids to all be the top, right? He wants a kid to be Hametzuyin. He wants to be the best. He go to the best yeshiva. He can make the best shidduch, and he can do all. That's just what we all strive to do. Now, there's a process to get there. It's not just, I want it, so I get it. The way it works is that if someone wants his son to get into a Mesefta or to be from that type of bacher, he's going to want ready from the 6th, 7th, 8th that the bacher is being very involved in his learning. Now, whatever I'm saying now is strictly for boys and not for girls, not the high school, not very, strictly for boys.
An unfair question. Can you label at Perezev for our listeners? You're in the middle, you're toward the right. The Lakewood has 200 yeshivas, K'nai Nahara. But where are you in the Lakewood world?
So we are the elite right.
Meaning it's two different gedarim. It's like how frum you are, whatever that means, and how academic you are. You're saying you're both.
It's you in simple English. 99.5% of our parent body is still in Klei Kodesh, either learning Vishnaj Kavaya or parents are Shinuch or Avitum. And very, very, and we have 1,100 Talmud.
Who's the Reish Mesid?
So we're talking about a very right wing, and that we definitely with this culture that we want our kids to be from the top. Everybody wants that top. Now, there is a way to get to it without the whole heaviness. The really ultimate goal is to give the kid that kishmak, and he should be able to connect to it and be able to appreciate it, enjoy what he's doing. But the only way that he could really have the gishmak is if he's doing it. I'll just throw out a small story that I had when I became a Rebbe. This is my 2nd year. And I used to get very into my tests. I taught 6th grade for 3 years. And I used to get very into my tests, mainly that it was a platform for me to build the Talmud. Like he did well, I was able to call his parent. I was able to give him something. It was a document that I was able to work off. So I had this kid, I think it was the 3rd or 4th week of school. And the parent calls me up that, I don't know if you noticed, with the past 3 Sundays, my son did not come. I said, okay. He said, you know why he doesn't come? He's very turned off. He's very pressured for the test. I said, all I need from you is one thing. I need you to give me 3 weeks that he comes, does the test, and then we'll talk after that. And of course, I did it with Chachma, and I did it with the right understanding, the right pressure. But I showed him that he could do it, and I showed him that he was succeeding, and I was able to build him. The parents he just came to my office last week to tell me where he's in Eretz Yisrael. When you have a platform for a kid to be matzliach and he's doing things and you're able to show it to him, there's nothing more valuable than that. Now, if a boy doesn't have pressure, so we just tell him be a kid, you don't have to do anything. It's true, he's going to coast along and he's going to enjoy, everything's going to be fine. But you're not really going to be able to give him that inner satisfaction, age appropriate, that he feels that he's productive and he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, and you can build him for the next step in his life. I just want to add one more thing about Schonfeld, Rabbi Garfield. We have a senior menal by us, Rabbi Falk. He's already 80, and he comes, up from time to time. And I remember the first year that I was teaching, so that all menalim were in my room by orientation, they were all, very involved. he said a very nice piece on homework, right? Everyone's busy, yeah, homework, no homework. And I think I wrote it on the group. There's one thing, if a boy's learning Gemara and he closes Gemara at 2 o'clock and he doesn't reopen his Gemara till the next day, 9 o'clock, one thing's very clear. He's not ligging, he's not involved in his learning. Not at all. He's not connecting to me, he's not feeling. But a boy goes home at night, besides, sure how much pressure, not pressure, but he's opening up that Baba Kama again and he's reviewing it, he feels more connected. Now, of course, it shouldn't be done with pressure, and the Rebbe should be getting loads of homework, and should be worksheets today. I have a Rebbe that made the boys fill out 2 pages of worksheets for homework. I'll be honest with you, I tried stopping him many times. Baruch Hashem, I moved him out of the division, so I don't have Machrayas on it for now. But it definitely should not be getting intense pressure, because then it's taking away what we're trying to get to. The ultimate goal is that a boy should have a Gishmak. But the way to get to Gishmak is by giving him the opportunities to do it and show him that he's successful.
Do you find that some kids it doesn't work for?
So if I find that it doesn't work for some kids, the overall system, but if I myself and the parents and the case manager and the Rebbe focus on the kid, we could find something in between that could be a modified system that we could get the same results without the kid having to do the entire quota of that homework. But just he's coming along doing 5 minutes, or he's getting a chavrusa, or he's learning with another boy his age. There's something to do for everyone. Everyone is capable of something. But if we do nothing, but again, that for those kids, you need focus.
One more question, Rabbi Schonfeld, just if I can. You mentioned that your school is self-selective to some extent, which you could be in Lakewood, in the sense that you only take people from a certain kav or a certain culture. If, let's say, you had to take everybody, like you had a sample size of like one of each school in your school, would you think that this philosophy would work?
So I'll be very honest that in the past few years, we started getting one from each size. I have now Hassidish, I have Palabatish, I have, Russian, the older grades, boys are coming from Karchin, they're coming from different schools where their options of size pace may not be their choice right now. They need a school where someone's going to look at them and take them in. I mean, this year we took in a bunch of boys, all different types. Again, it's the same thing. If there's focus, everyone is possible. Everyone is shaykh to do to an extent. The reason why I'm saying focus is because if there's no focus, automatically the system may be too much for them. Too much. And not on the level. They might not also come from the same home background that's expecting their children to be on that level.
That's what I'm saying. Like some schools have, like Rabbi Schonfeld school and my school, we have a range of all sorts of stuff going on, level of interest, level of commitment, level of intelligence, like everything.
I believe that even in your schools, you could create a culture, what we're trying to get to. Same thing, maybe much less. Doesn't have to be that 20 minutes a night and they're not learning as much Gemara as us, but the same model that is accountability, and we want the boys to feel good about what they're doing, and we want them to succeed. That could be done in any culture.
100%. 100%.
Is there like a certain hanacha, an understanding, and maybe an okayness that there will be kids that just maybe because of they don't have the intellect, they're not strong enough to have a reading disability, or there's whatever the reasons is, this doesn't work for everybody. So is the hanacha of, I don't want to single out your yeshiva, but is the hanacha of this system that there will be quote unquote, I don't want to use the word karbanis, right? But there are going to be kids that are going to fall off. But since it works for 90% or whatever the number is, then, elef nichnas v'yachod yotze, right? Yotze. So is that accepted? Is that an acceptable consequence?
So I tell you how by us, we very much, the Baruch Shem there's a lot of resources. There's tender touch, there's on track, there's evaluations, chabrusis. I mean, we live in a town where everything's available, including food. And saying that, whenever we're trying to focus and zoom into a kid, there's always something to work on. The kids that we pull carbonis, or usually comes from an emotional place, so we can't, this is not what caused. This has nothing really to do. It's more of an emotional.
But if you have a pressure or an expectation or a push where elite right wing, beautifully said, right, in an elitist school, which I have nothing, listen, lahavdil el five Harvard is an elitist school and everyone wishes their son was there, right? But there are kids that are not elite. academically and learning. So you're going to get them help and you're going to get them a mentor. But how are they not meant to feel as a b'diavad, as a failure, if they can't do shakvatar of the whole Parak HaKonis, and they can't give a chabura in 8th grade on a machlekes with the Rambam and Taisus with the Reb Chaim? How are they meant to feel pride and feel a chelik and feeling a sipuk and a geschmack if they aren't elite? And I can't imagine their yeshiva, just because you have a hush of a clientele parents, means that every single kid is a mitzuin and is academically. So how do you do that? It seems to me, that's to me, if you could do that, then, wow.
You mentioned Shakal. We have a mass Shakal program that we put a lot of conscious into it. And basically the way it works is that we have two full-time testers, both of them, you will light that are here to test. And they have Ras that go through each kid. And it starts with his prizes throughout the meat trip at the end. So I believe, from a kid's perspective, he measures his success based on if he's on the trip. That's how I feel. Am I par? Am I not par? Par means I go on the trip, not par. I've worked some over the years that have managed to be successfully, were able to get everybody who wanted to be on the trip.
So what percentage of the middle school goes on the trip out of 275?
272.
272? That's a pretty good number.
I'll tell you what I'm doing, because at the same time that the pressure is up, first of all, let's say Shakatai, there are some schools, even from the right elite schools, they're very into okay, we want to show off and we want to show that half of our student body could do the whole HaKodesh Shakatai. And they'll build it into the program that you could do the whole Shakatai of HaKodesh. Now, I don't do it because I don't have anything for them. Those boys, they'll do what they want. They're not getting much, and only makes the other boys feel much less. So we do the Shakatai program in a way that's not extreme. It's something that's doable. Let's say I have a few boys that can't do it. So no problem. If you're coming with your Gemara, you could read from inside. Okay, you came to the Bochen, you said your piece, and you good. Or you have boys that don't come so often. When we make you to go on the trip, you have to go, let's say, 9 out of 36 times.
Hey, so Rabbi Smith, you're a faker. You say you're a pressurized yeshiva, but you're not. Because I'm saying this in a complimentary way. You're not. Because you're not pressurizing, because Baruch Hashem, Lefi Kaitai, the kid that can't, right? So you're not. To me, this is elite. But you're not an elitist yeshiva because you have kids. I don't mean, right?
If you were, you'd make the standard such that only 50% pull it off, but those 50% are going to be Mitsuyanim.
There's no, because everyone has the same problem that you had. I have the same problem that you had. What are we doing? Creating a system to kill kids? So we create a culture. The culture is strong. The culture is Mitsuyan.
Explain. Can you explain that? No, so let's say it slow. What's your culture?
The culture is that there's a very big emphasis in being Hamitzui.
Rabbi Smith, isn't that a little juvenile? Like, imagine you're playing basketball. You played basketball, Mal, football. You know what that is? The sport with the ball. You seem like you might have done that once. Everyone has to be Charles Barkley or whatever I don't know who's today. Everyone has to be Michael Jordan. I mean, that's silly. It's silly. It's just not how the world is. You can't say everyone's a Mitsuyan. It's silly. Everyone is a Mitsuyan. No, that's by definition not what a Mitsuyan is.
I think the way to understand it is that what do we really give Chashivas? Our parent, what do we really give Chashivas?
Being the best you could be.
It's one that's doing the best that he could do and learn.
Right, the best he could be. But there's no, the best you could be, not the brisker, not the guy who
But a guy who's not doing anything, he doesn't carry Chashivas.
Okay, but if he's doing the best he could be, he's doing the best
sure. And the kids, what are they seeing in their house? They're seeing a father that's giving haracha, giving recognition to Chashivas. That's what they're giving haracha. They're either themselves, they're on at a Rosh Chabura or not. They see what their father goes for. The father doesn't go for vacations and doesn't go for Sunday off, and it's not what he's spending his day with. He's spending his day in the curse of this matters. Doesn't mean everybody's father is Hamitsuya.
No, there's a work ethic is different, but Mitsuyan to me is a level of accomplishment. It's a level of Breitkite. It's a level of Shakavatariya Balpeh. That's what a Mitsuyan is to me. You have two definitions of a Mitsuyan. To me, if you say my kid's a Mitsuyan, you mean he's very smart, he's a big masmid, and he's really into learning. That's what I think when I hear it. But okay, if you do that, you've limited the scope to, I don't know, 20%. How many Mitsuyanim are there? But if you say my whole school is for Mitsuyanim, I mean, okay, what do you mean by that? I don't know what that means.
When I was a Rebbe, in my first year teaching a YSV, I had the week class. So I met a Rebbe of mine, and he said to me, "No, what do you do?" I said, "I'm Rebbe Yeshiva Spring Valley." "Oh, what do you teach?" I said, "I teach the 7th grade Mitziyanim." And he said, "I do the same thing in my yeshiva. I know what that means."
So Rabbi Smith, you can't have your cake and eat it too, unless it's a marketing ploy, and everyone should be listening that Torah Zev is Mitsuyanim, wink, wink, and we'll go along with it. But if you want to talk tachlis, you can't be Mitsuyanim and a populist at the same time. It's a steer. I mean,
Right, that's what I'm saying. You're talking, and I don't mean to gang up on you, because no, but to me the compliment is
he thought he was
that you-
coming to an easy
it sounds
interview.
like, it sounds like that somehow this is the secret sauce. It sounds like somehow you're able to create a culture where chashivas of Torah and is really everything, much more than maybe in a typical environment. And yet, and this is that yet, which is the goal. If you're able to do this, then ashrecha. And yet, the kid that isn't able to reach that yet, the kid who struggles in shakvatayr, the kid who has a kriya problem, the kid who has ADD, so ADHD, so he really can't sit, he's still able to go on the trip by thinking he's a mitsuyan. Then that's brilliant.
Let me take the last line that you said. He thinks he's a Mitsuyon. They don't walk around that they're Mitsuyon. That's not what the culture is. When we talk about the level, what level the Rebbeim teaching on? The Rebbeim are teaching on the highest level that they teach.
What if the kid can't make it?
So good. That's what I'm saying. That's where we have to create a system within the system. You know, I just say like this. If I was in an out-of-town yeshiva, okay, and I didn't have that, let's say the parent body behind me, or I didn't have the shifa behind me, and I was just focusing on, let's say every year I would change my level. I would look at the kids and say, okay, what's the level this year?
Which we do in our yeshiva. Rabbi Garfield, you do that in your yeshiva? I imagine.
Yeah, to a large extent, but I would think you would do it there too, because even there are levels within levels, no?
What I'm saying is that our level is high. The level is high because that's what the parent body wants. That's what
Is it high because your kids happen to be brighter than academically IQ than other yeshivas? Baruch Hashem, self-selective?
No, I think that needs to them more. And this I hear from Rebbeim and substitutes from within Lakewood that go from ched to ched. You can see a difference in a minute from Terezev and whatever. I'll call more left yeshiva. A more left, I just mean parent body, more balabatish. That's all. You see a difference. The kids in 6th and 7th grade are busy with other things versus learning, being, it doesn't mean every kid is like that. It doesn't mean that every class. I have now a class, one of my 11 classes, the ruach in the class is not to learn. It's a problem. It's a big struggle for the Rebbe because he's sitting here used to always teaching on a certain level. And here the class is just not into. I went into the fair yesterday and was not great. And Baruch Hashem, the Rebbe is very on board and he understood all this before I came. So he did it really easy to bring it out to him, but it's something that we have to do.
I'll let Rabbi Garfield finish. But to me, Rabbi Smith, I'm not here to patronize or give you any, I don't know, advice or push. But a class like that in Torah Zev, that will, to me, show, how real everything is. In other words, if you're able, and again, my experiences with you, minimal, have been very positive. I wish I could share the stories I've heard from how you dealt with firsthand. But if you're able to take a class of, let's call them non-mitzuyanim, kids that aren't naturally into learning, they don't fit the perfect mold of the yeshiva, and if they leave 8th grade, whatever masifta they go to, feeling that they have a shaykhis to the chashivas of Torah that is, or the culture that your families and your yeshiva are machshiv, that's gold. That to me would be super impressive. If you have a yeshiva that has everyone's all the way up here, and then you have a group that's lower, and you're able to still have them feel the same haracha and the same chashivas, that's dynamite.
We very much strive to do that. Can't say we get every kid, but
listen, I would hope that we all strive for that. Meaning, I think we're all trying to push the envelope of growth as much as we can in a healthy way, and it's this, it's a delicate balance. I
just want to get back to one thing quick. We started off.
Yeah.
This concept of, a lot of parents use it sometimes when they go on to go easy street. He's only 63, let him be a kid. Let's not forget, there's building blocks to build a person. Part of those building blocks is, yes, being a pre-1A, first, second, third. And then when you get to middle school, is it really a time where academics start becoming relevant? It's not relevant for their life skill. It's part of building those blocks. So if you say a kid should be a kid till 9th grade, you are taking away 2 or 3 years of his building blocks. As you say this, and it's part of the building of a boy. That's what it is. and that works for all ages.
I agree. I mean, I think being successful in learning is a major motivator for the next day. And if you just let the kid sleep or not push himself, you're not helping him learn himself. At the same time, if you come up with some standard that's just not based on Chanathanar Pidarko, it's just like a random standard that makes you look good. So that's when it gets dangerous, I think.
So I think what just to sum it up, what I'm saying basically is there's a culture, and then within the system, we have to add a system. I mean, there can't be system close. This is how it works.
Right, that's the dome. That's the dome. The dome this is the system. Well, Rabbi Smith, thank you so much for joining us. It was great talking to you, and we really appreciate your leadership.
Thank you.
All right, all the best.
Take care. Kol
Thank you.
tov. So we're going to continue this topic with our next guest and maybe hear from the girl perspective, which as fun as the last conversation with Rabbi Smith was, for hearing a unique perspective from a unique yeshiva in Lakewood, I think from the girls' middle school, high school perspective, I think we hear a lot of pain from parents or struggles from parents. So our next guest is Mrs. Aliza Feder. Mrs. Feder is the head mechaneches at Beis Yaakov Mechane Orah in Passaic. She speaks for audiences really all around, to high school girls and to parents. Shiurim, author of many books. You could actually access her shiurim and her talks on her website, mrsalizafeder.com. And we're a little bit mishpacha. My cousin married Mrs. Feder's son. So Mrs. Feder, welcome to the Learning Curve.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
So we're going to read you the question that we just read, Rabbi Smith, who was a Manal in Lakewood. We'll read the parts I'll read the whole question again. And the question is, the school year just started and my kids are already stressed. My 6th grade son is now in middle school, more teachers, more work, and a wonderful Rebbe who says that Gemara Chazara always comes first and is a must every night. My 10th grade daughter has nothing but tests and sheets to memorize, memorizing Nevi'im, memorizing Historia. Why are we putting so much pressure on our children? Real life will come either way. Why can't they just enjoy the last few years of being a kid, even while in school? There has to be another way. In parentheses, I dare you to find one mother who thinks differently. So we've been discussing this from a Lakewood perspective, from a yeshiva boy perspective with Gemara. You obviously, this is your comfort zone, Mrs. Feder. So that's, I guess, to reframe the question in terms of pressure. Is pressure a big part, academic pressure, of the girl system? Seems to be. Why, and how can we create a healthy balance?
Okay. So listening to that question, a few things jumped out at me. I would love to separate certain issues. In other words, the question that you asked is not exactly the question that the questioner asked to begin with, which is fine. And obviously, when I'm speaking, I am there. When you're talking about a system, the system is huge. I like the way you said, like the Lakewood angle, as opposed to, maybe the Passaic Clifton angle. And when I speak, I'm going to try to be mindful that I'm not actually speaking about my specific school. I'm really talking from experience from the students and parents that I speak to. Is academic pressure a part of the picture? It absolutely is. I think with zero academic pressure, you can't have a school if there's absolutely nothing there. But again, there's talking about academic pressure, and then they're speaking about the amounts of tests and homework that kids have. That's not necessarily the same thing. But in terms of the question and something specific kind of yelled out at me with this question, why are we putting so much pressure on these kids? Why can't they just enjoy the last few years of being a child? All of that stuff. There is a piece of that I agree with personally. I don't think that any kid should be under extreme amounts of academic pressure. For starters, this is a horrible learning environment. Anybody will tell you. You can't be under extreme amounts of pressure and really be learning. But I think that what's necessary in my mind is to go back to the beginning and try to figure out what school is for. Because it's not for creating insane pressure through unreachable academic standards, obviously. It's not to force kids into memorizing useless information, obviously. It's also not to be a holding pen whose job it is to make sure they enjoy themselves until they have to deal with the real stresses of adulthood. That's equally untrue. So, personally speaking, after 25 years plus in education, I think that a large part of what school is for is to ease, and in my view is high school, so is to ease kids into and to prepare them for a life of happiness as individuals in Ovdei Hashem. And once that's your baseline goal, then you could see if the pressure is helping them or harming them, if it's too much, if there's a balance.
I think it's a pretty safe and standard. I don't think anyone would argue that the goal of Mesivta or Beis Yaakov, that we're discussing Beis Yaakov education, is to ease and help the girls move from being young adolescents into adults that are of the Hashem. I think that's
Right.
pretty. I guess the question then is memorizing Ovadia and Micha, right? How is that? Because everyone has.
Exactly. So that was the follow-up part of the question, which actually surprised me. And I have to confess, a little bit like I laughed out loud in my head hearing this. The examples of like 10th grade girls memorizing Mamre Chazal, Psukim from Navi. What are they going to use this for? That actually makes me laugh. I thought the examples were for sure going to, if we're giving examples of like useless, excessive information, I thought we were going to talk about like obscure mathematical formulas, which let's face it, nobody uses these things. Like weird historical trivia about dates in China or whatever, like hyper specific rules of grammar. I actually think that learning Torah is pretty much what they should be spending their time on. I actually think that psukim from Navi and Ksuvim, Mamre Chazal, these are the anchors that are going to keep them on the right path through the years outside of school. I mean, I have to preface this. I know I'm a teacher. I'm not an intellectual. I don't love learning for learning's sake. I don't love deconstructing or Ramban or, I skip the Gematria, Mafarshem. Like these, I always did and I probably always will. But at the same time, just having fluffy, hashkafic discussions, they can feel nice, but if they aren't really grounded, they're going to last until the next, pretty speech by a talented presenter who says the opposite. And the kids won't have tools to identify what is MS and what's just pretty packaging. And in our day and age, where every single person has a platform to give their opinion on everything and anything, it's actually super important to have grounded knowledge of what is Torah's MS and what's just the opinion of the latest Insta celebrity. So the psukim and the Mamre Chazal that were quote unquote forcing them to memorize or grading them on, that actually doesn't bother me.
Memorization helps. Is that? I mean, because they cram before the test, they sing a song,
Yeah.
they cram before a test.
So you just
Right.
actually said two different things. Cramming before a test does absolutely nothing. That's scientifically proven. That is in one ear, out the other. Singing a song? Oh, you will have that earworm
Oh,
forever.
that's true. That's right. I should say you're
Yeah.
right. Because my wife actually still sings a Sneal Ben Kanaz Hu
Yes,
Haya.
yes, I
Right?
know that one. I know that one. Yes, absolutely. So those actually, I used to teach ninth grade Historia for many years in Bury High School, and I sang the most annoying songs. Made the girls learn them, and they used to call me from college after and say, "You have no idea how much that helped us in Jewish history in college classes." So songs are, but in general, your question really is not about songs. Your question is about rote memorization. One of my role models in Chinuch is Mrs. Latte Press of Prospect Park. And she actually says, and I wholeheartedly concur, that rote memorization is actually one of the most underutilized forms of education. Meaning, I know we're all into, the latest and the most innovative, and you have to capture their imagination, and we have to switch topics and no frontal teaching, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's all true. But just memorizing, not cramming for a test, that's just dumb. That's pure spitback. It's gonna be gone in 2 days. But having them repeat the same sentence, let's say my high school teacher did, I remember in 11th grade Chumash, we had to repeat specific Mamre Chazal every single solitary day. Write it at the end of every single, that actually sticks with you. They do. So I think a lot of this is teacher dependent. I think it's on the teacher to teach in a way that empowers the students on their level to do the best they can with really relevant, useful material. I think that's on the teacher. I think it's on a parent to make sure that their kids stay balanced and doesn't overdo things and is in a place, by the way, that's most suited to their level and learning style. I think you have kids that are so clearly a mismatch to their institution, meaning their parents will place them in an institution that is way above their level scholastically and then complain about too much homework and too much pressure. And that's not fair to a kid. Teachers are by and large doing as good a job as we can with learning differentiation, but sometimes there's just a very obvious mismatch. That's not such a fair thing to say because not everybody has options. So you might be in a community where you're forced to go to a certain school or you only got into one school. So, but when you do have options, or when you have options for class placements, everyone wants their kids in the in the olive class. That might not be for your kid, so you can't put them there and then complain about pressure. So, some is on the parent, some is on the teacher. I don't think academic is pressure is a terrible thing in it of itself. Like everything else in life, it depends, obviously.
I want to explore the memorization thing for a minute because that was very interesting to me. So first of all, I'm sure you're familiar, but not all of our listeners would be with Bloom's taxonomy and this idea of levels of cognition. And so it's it's become a pretty basic approach to education that higher level thinking and engaging is really the goal. And to be able to spit back information, my chavrusa used to call me a Chinese tape recorder. Like I could say it back. I have no clue what I'm saying, but I could say it back, is not really education. And I wonder, and this is the question, I wonder how the girls perceive it. I don't, I don't have well, I don't have a girl in high school right now. I have girls who've been through high school, but I imagine if there's a lot of rote memorization without the cognition, I wonder if they relate to it positively and if they feel it's enhancing them. You're saying it anchors them, but I would think it would be more to distance them from the beauty of the text and of the words.
Just to piggyback and to add to that, like just to show the separation, in boys' mesiftas, this doesn't exist. No one's memorizing Gemaras, right? It's not. It's about, as you said, it's about the level of learning and it's about understanding. And of course, you need chazer and you have to review, but it's about reviewing concepts as opposed to memorization does not exist in boys' high schools.
Yeah.
And yet it seems it's a tremendous piece of girls' high schools. That's just fascinating to me.
Yeah. So there's definitely what to talk about in terms of the difference between boys and girls and their needs and what they need to know. I think that we're all in agreement that memorization is not education. Under nobody's definition. Memorization is not education. It's a tool and it could be a foundation for education, but that cannot be the entire education. We all know people, sometimes our children, maybe, who can spit back this vast amount of material, but when you ask them a single question on it, they have no idea what they're saying. Sometimes they'll even memorize it, like the wrong words running into each other. So they literally have no idea what they're saying. And that, I think we can all agree, is worthless.
Isn't that an epidemic in girls' high schools?
I don't know that I would say that. Why would you think that?
Because every single high school girl that I know cries that all they're busy is memorizing psukim, and all they have to do is memorize. They're memorizing. That's all it is. It's not about breaking
Is
apart
that
a
true?
Ramban.
I
So
didn't know
this
that.
is
I don't
actually
have that.
fascinating to me because I work with a lot of different girls. I don't really know so many complaints about memorization per se. I think that there's a certain amount of memorization. I would put it more in the elementary schools when they're memorizing things that they don't know what they're memorizing, like certain memory chazal that they don't know the meaning to or the answer to. But the memorization that goes on in girls' schools, they're not memorizing for the most part, let's say, words of psukim that you could easily look up or Rashi that you could easily look up. What I'm thinking in terms of memorization are mostly Mamre Chazal, certain foundational psukim that come out as like I said, as an anchor to certain hashkafic ideas. So if you would teach, this is ironic because my students, if they heard this, would laugh because I actually don't give any memorization whatsoever. But now I'm thinking that maybe I should start. They'll love me for this.
Yeah, your
There you
mentor
go.
is Mrs. Press. She
Yeah,
would
yeah,
be
but
unhappy with you.
but there are, like, you can give a 45-minute meaningful, and this is what I meant when I said it's on the teacher, extremely relevant, and it's on you as a teacher to make sure that they understand the relevance and the transformational ideas that you're giving over, and then hook it to a chazal. Then when chazal are not just meaningless words, they're supposed to bring about ideas that are behind it. This goes into like a whole different other type of conversation. It's just in Yiddishkeit in general, where we're moving away because we're so allergic to the boring old state, like, the repetitious quality, and people are always looking for like the nouveau, exciting, inspirational. But an argument could really be made for both. That's what this is reminding me of. Like, you can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. So to throw out all, going back to our original topic, to throw out all academic pressure, so that now we have this pressure-free environment. To me, that's just a collection of, again, nice thoughts that are not really anchored in anything, in any I have tos. So there's no need for performance.
A fair criticism, again, this is very general, the very stereotypical criticism, that girls Beis Yaakovs have an inordinate amount of homework and tests. It's 3-4 hours a night. Is right? I mean, that's definitely the stigma, and it's definitely the stereotype. Is that totally fake? I don't think, right? And why is that?
I don't think that's totally fake. I have a much bigger issue with the fact that they are sitting in school and learning endless topic after topic, subject after subject after subject in a train from 8:30 in the morning till 5:30 at night. So when they get home and it's pitch black outside for most of the year, then they have to pull out the couple of hours of homework. To me, that's the outrageous part. It's actually not the homework that kills me, even as a
At
teacher.
3, yeah,
Yeah.
if they ended at 3, that'd be great.
Right, right. But it's
How
if
wrong
they
is that?
I'm not sure. I think that part of it, to be completely honest, I think that part of it is idea of keep them busy and out of trouble. I've heard that. I've heard that from administrators before. Literally keep them busy and out of trouble. Like better one administrator told me better they should be busy because I was complaining that there was a certain thing that was just literally busy work to keep the kids busy. I forgot what subject it was in, and she said better they should be doing busy work than they should be in quick check. I mean, yeah, I guess so, but are those the only two options? Like, I'm not sure those are the only two options.
Is getting into seminary a pressure that plays a role?
Right. It's not just the getting into seminary. It's
Seminary.
the need to state that my school has these rigorous standards, and that therefore that means I'm better than your
Mm.
school. There is
Meaning it's
something
not the
like that
kid
going
per
on.
se, but it's the system.
Exactly. So we go back to a system, and that's a systemic pressure. The seminary's standards are high, but I have to tell you, and again, this could be a reflection of the school that I teach in, which is very unusual in a lot of different ways. But I hear again and again from the girls that are in seminary that call me and post seminary that call me is, oh yeah, seminary was like nothing compared to high school. Seminary was easy. You had like a handful of subjects. You're off every
Even the more academic ones?
even the more academic ones. You're off for like 3 half days. They only teach like in the mornings for, twice a week, or just at nights for twice a week. Like high school was serious. Seminary is like,
And
yeah,
so now
whatever.
seminary costs like double the amount of money. Go
I have a
figure.
lot to say about
Do you think
seminary, but
seminaries are setting?
You're
that's for
getting
a
half the
different that's for a
product
different
for double
topic.
the cash.
Do you think seminaries are setting the standard? Because is that
And no, I don't think so. I actually don't think so. I think that
so
seminary is
who is the
actually
system?
I
So
think
who
that
is it?
seminary is
If the
largely
parents hate it,
disconnected.
if the parents hate the 3 hours of homework and the kids hate the 3 hours of homework, it's like a band of quiet, whatever the word menaheles is.
Yeah,
Right?
it must be the
Historically,
evil principles. It must be
Yeah.
the evil menahelises. That's probably it. I'm actually going to push back. I don't think all parents hate it. I think that's a dirty secret. I don't think all parents hate it. I think there are parents whose kids are not dying under pressure. They're just busy. And I think parents are okay with that. I've heard from many parents that it's not a horrible thing. I think it's become a bit of a myth, this like homework pressure monster. And I don't think it's true for large amounts of the population. Again, I can't speak to what's going on in Lakewood per se, let's say. I simply can't speak on the high school scene there. But the high school scenes that I'm more familiar with, whether it's in Brooklyn or in the Jersey area, and many different places in Jersey outside of Lakewood, I'm not actually seeing this crush of horrible pressure outside of the girls who need a lot of extra help to be kept up with a certain academic standard of the majority of their classes because of, let's say, learning trouble or being unsuited to the particular school that they're in, and then they need extra tutors or extra studying and things like that. I think that this is a little bit, I think the elementary school homework problem is actually worse than the high school homework problem. I'm not denying that there's too much work in high school. I shouldn't say that. I'm not denying the girls have too little space for their own time and too much pressure. I'm not convinced that the pressure comes from too much homework. I think we also live in a reality where people take what they do very seriously. Girls are hard on themselves, period, end of story. So they're hard on themselves with the way they look. They're hard on themselves to perform perfectly in their hobbies and outside interests.
Right.
They're hard on themselves to be popular and friends, and they're hard on themselves to do well in school. Part of it is
Right, and they
self-imposed.
care about every test as opposed to the 10th
Yes,
grader in yeshiva that doesn't care about failing Bekias, right?
exactly.
Because
Exactly.
but the girls have a spelling test, a quiz, and it's a
Yes.
3-hour ordeal.
Yes, girls have not discovered the dirty little secret of like, it really doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't matter.
Well, they just did because they're listening.
Yeah. Except
no, but they
that,
still have to
except
get
that,
into seminary,
well, I was about to say,
right?
what they push back at me when I tell, let's say, my own daughters, could you chill out? This actually doesn't matter at all. She will push back, and she's not wrong. And she'll say, yeah, it matters. It matters to my GPA because that matters to seminary.
Right.
So she's
And it does.
not right. So she's not 100% wrong. And in
Yeah.
that way, when you ask the seminary driving it, not directly, but indirectly, yes. Because when I tell a student, please only focus on Chumash, could you not worry about what I've said? That's very nice of you to say, but what's going to be when? And she's not wrong. She's not wrong.
Right. I wonder, I'm more familiar with the boys scene, so I'm not asking this question with any angle, just curious. Are we reaching the girls largely? Would you say that your average Beis Yaakov girl feels seen and connected and valued? Or do you feel like the system is just so, energized, and there's so much pressure on the system itself that it's hard to get to that.
So I need to be very upfront. When I hear questions like this from people outside of the girls, my blood starts to get a little hotter for a little bit, because there is a huge pre-assumption here that we're not speaking their language, we're not reaching the girls, they're not being seen or heard, they don't feel validated or understood. And
Right.
I think that's garbage. I don't think that's true at all. I think that I, again, can't speak outside of the schools that are touch base, and there will always be girls who fall through the cracks. Always. And it's horrible, and we have to do more to reach them. And sometimes there are so many reasons outside of the school, the house, that they're getting lost, that there's simply not much we could do. But the mechanchos that I know are doing unbelievably awesome jobs reaching kids every single solitary day. And there are different types of mechanchos for different types of kids and different types of classes for different types of kids. I actually think that the young women that we're graduating are stunning works of internally developed people. And we're
Mm.
very quick to, judge the system and even judge the girl, because, like, oh, she's too into brand names and she's too into how she looks. And it's simply not true. I think they could be into brand names and how they look, but there's a lot going on there that's deeply beautiful and moving.
Before we close, could you, if you had, you were given the mantle for an hour up to make one small change for mankind in our high school girls chinuch system, that you think that would maybe create and to help, this balance, the pressurized balance, what would it be?
I just have one thing that's really, really tough. How about if I say them really, really fast? Then could it be considered one thing? Start later, end earlier, have gym every single solitary day and force the girls to move, and teach less subjects for more time each. Have less teachers for more time. That would be my wish for my new school.
That's very succinct.
Yeah, I thought a lot about this. Yeah.
All right,
I'm going to
wonderful.
speak to that bands of evil Menahelises and see what I can do.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well,
Amazing.
wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us,
pleasure.
and it's great that you're out there doing your thing. Keep it up. It's
Thank you.
great.
Thank you.
you.
Take
We
care.
appreciate it.
So Garfield, that was wonderful, and we actually heard
Yeah.
two very distinct,
Yes.
I mean, from all the way from the elite right of Lakewood,
Right.
but really from a very chashuv Emanal, Rabbi Smith, to Mrs. Feder, who passionately and articulately describing a lot of what goes on in girls' chinuch. I think there's nuance and there's different, everyone has their own sprach and their own language. And in Lakewood, in Tarzev, they speak one way. And in maybe in Mrs. Federer's world, they speak a different way. I do think there is a lot of commonality, and this is what I strive for in my yeshiva, and that is to do it all. That is our job as mechanchim, anyone who's in education, our job is to do it all, to be able to create a culture where, yes, where the top kid should feel pride in getting the entire Perek Baal Peh, and in writing a chabura, and in being and in memory, and all of it. And if there is a certain academic pressure that he could handle that feeds his or hers growth, that's amazing. And we also, at the exact same time, have to create this like soft landing spot and like velvety carpet for the kids that need to get there their own way. Certain kids respond to cultural pressure, and certain kids don't. Certain kids respond to the Rebbe that takes them by the hand slowly. And I don't think, even though Rabbi Smith spoke it in his sprach, Mrs. Feder and hers, I heard more similarity than differences. And maybe that's me trying to be a little bit too PC, because I do think that by and large, Menalim and Menalos today, really, as you heard from Mrs. Feder when you asked that question, we strive our hardest to tansav alachasanas, but the system still is a system of pressure
Yeah.
in many areas.
See, I get in a little trouble, to be honest, with all of our listeners here in Houston with this, because I am so sensitive to the emotional development of the children. Like, that's my orientation. I have background in counseling. I'm very into providing that, safe environment. And people misinterpret that to mean that I'm not into pushing academics, which I am. And I think that academics is an important piece of a child's sense of self and success and growth. But I think the critical question is, so I just want to say, I think it's easy to get lost in words, and the words don't really, what do they mean? Excellence, rigor. What do these words mean? Yeah, we all want that. Yeah, mitsuyanim, she'ifas, like they're just words, So I think, sometimes I could be, my words, I don't necessarily talk that way enough because I just feel it's so important to remember the other aspect, which I think we're doing a good job, but we've been reculturating our schools to be aware of. But I think if you really want to get down to it, if I really want to drill it in, and with Rabbi Smith, this sort of helped when we started pushing him, is if you have to sacrifice something, right? You can either sacrifice, meaning in the end of the day, we want it all. But what if you can't? What if you have to sacrifice the emotional safety of a kid to get him to learn that extra, Mishnah or that extra Shakavataria? Do you do it? Do you ever risk that emotional comfort, safety, and self-confidence for the academic? And I think that's where you're forced to make that hard decision.
I think it's very fair, and I think
Because
Rabbi Smith would
otherwise,
give-
yeah,
I
we
think
all
if-
want it
I
all.
want to
But
speak on behalf of Rabbi Smith, but I think certain yeshivas would give you one answer, and certain yeshivas would give you another answer.
right. So I think
Right.
that's the $1 million question. And the thing that bothers me, and I will be very clear, I think you err on the side of giving them an emotional safety, especially in elementary school, because for me, that's the foundation upon which all buildings are going to be built. And if you risk that foundation, you're really short-sighted because we're in the long game, and so that's my philosophical orientation. What makes me nervous is that people either aren't sophisticated enough or honest enough to own the reality and the consequences of their decision. And so, if you just talk, yeah, push, 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 but you don't really own it and recognize the reality, that's when I feel it's like you're doing a disservice to chinuch.
And what I found, I went through a lot of different yeshivas from a lot of different spectrums. I have a colorful background. And, the kids that came from the more pressurized, mitsuyanim elementary schools, and right, they weren't better. I'm being very obviously general. When they're 22, the guys that
Right.
are really serious Mr. are great. And then what do you mean? Well, you in high school, you didn't have English. So I'm expecting you to know Navi Balpeh, right? Nope. I'm expecting you to have more Yedias, at least know the Mishabura. Nope. Like, if you go to the 21-year-old guy, and Prager's, and Brisk, and the Mir, whatever yeshiva you want to go to, the Mitsuyanim, right? The guys at top in their shear, I don't think you'll be able to see a real tangible difference in their elementary school, which one had more Shakvataria Balpeh and which one didn't.
So then that's even more so, because if you start using that as a weapon, if it becomes like a negative, right, that's even more of a unnecessary risk.
Right, and when you have a culture of pressure or a culture of this is what it must be, it's harder for kids to enjoy that. It's harder for kids to gain meaning in something that they feel almost, forced, but no
Right,
bechira. It becomes nama
absolutely.
de chisufa.
Absolutely.
So, Baruch Hashem,
All
this
right,
was a
very good. Excellent.
way to start,
Excellent
Rabbi. Way to
conversation. Yeah, we
go.
jumped right in.
Season 3, here we go.
Mm. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us on the Learning Curve podcast. You can find out more about this and other topics at mishpacha.com. And of course, we ask you, besides sharing it with others who might enjoy it, we'd love to hear from you. And there's 2 ways to reach out to us. One's through the email, which is called thelearningcurve@mishpacha.com. You could send an email to that email address, thelearningcurve@mishpacha.com. Or you could call, leave a message, and we could even play the message if you'd like. It's 443-686-9339. Again, that's 443-686-9339.